There is a specific, quiet kind of ache that hits when you finally close the door, and the world goes completely silent. But for some of us, it isn't an ache at all. It's a physical exhale. It's not the relief of escaping something terrible, but the sudden, terrifyingly beautiful realization that you are exactly where you want to be, with absolutely no one, doing nothing, feeling entirely, fundamentally fine. To the people who constantly need noise to survive, this looks like a cry for help. They look at you from the outside and see a tragic story of isolation, like a piece of your soul is missing. But from the inside, it feels heavy, whole, complete. It's a fullness that doesn't need an audience to exist. Maybe you know someone like this, or maybe you're looking at your own reflection right now. The person who disappears for an entire weekend and returns feeling alive instead of starved for human contact. The one who never says, "I'm bored," because the static in their own head is already too loud. You don't need plans, or text messages, or external distractions to validate the hours ticking by. And when people look at you with pity and ask, "Don't you get lonely?" you genuinely don't know how to answer. Because to you, loneliness and aloneness are two entirely different oceans. We live in a world that assumes if you spend too much time with your own thoughts, something must be broken inside you. They think you're sliding into a dark depression, or that you're antisocial, or detached from what makes life worth living. But psychology tells a much heavier truth. For a specific kind of psyche, solitude isn't starvation. It's a resurrection. It isn't the absence of life. It's the presence of a completely different world. Internal instead of external. Self-generated instead of socially forced. For a nervous system wired this way, that inner chaos isn't just enough. It is preferred. Personality researchers call this high internal complexity. Your brain doesn't wait for society to entertain it. It naturally fractures into thoughts, questions, and deep, unprompted connections. You don't need the outside world to be interesting, because the universe inside your skull is already overwhelming. It is an intricate web of concepts, a constant trial court of your own morals, and a safe domain where you can finally dismantle the mask you wear for the public. But let's be honest. Behind the beautiful curtain of a rich inner landscape, there is a darker truth we rarely talk about. Sometimes, this bunker we built isn't just a choice. It's a fortress. A defense mechanism learned a long time ago. When you were growing up, the external world wasn't always safe. People were unpredictable. Promises were broken. Loud environments felt like an absolute threat to your fragile emotional stability. And so, your brain did the only thing it could do to protect your sanity. It built an underground city inside your conscious space. You retreated inward, because inside your own head, you controlled the entire narrative. No one could reject you there. No one could abandon you. Your early obsession with solitary play, with drowning inside books for hours while the sun set, wasn't just a quirky personality trait. It was a quiet survival strategy. You didn't just prefer the stillness. You needed it to escape a harsh reality that felt too sharp, too chaotic, or too indifferent to handle. You learned that being hyper-independent meant you would never have to rely on someone who might leave. Yet, we live in a culture that treats constant noise as sanity, and quiet as a sickness that needs a fix. We fill every empty second with podcasts. We kill the solitary moments with vibrating notifications. Today, we pathologize boredom and worship busyness. People ask, "What did you do this weekend?" And you feel a sudden, cold sweat. Because saying nothing sounds wasteful to them. Saying "I just sat with my thoughts" makes them uncomfortable, like you are harboring a dangerous secret. So you lie. You invent imaginary plans to sound normal. You downplay how much you crave the isolation, because admitting the truth frightens them. You've learned that your internal life doesn't count as a valid answer in a world that only values what it can see, measure, and monetize. They think you're in denial. They think you're just better at tolerating the emptiness. They look at your quiet life and pity your lack of social calendar, completely unaware that your weekend was filled with a depth of experience they might never reach in a lifetime. But you aren't tolerating emptiness. You are fighting a silent war no one else can see. Your body is perfectly still, but your mind is running an absolute marathon. And this is the paradox of high internal complexity. It is beautiful, but it is deeply, fundamentally exhausting. There are nights when you hate the fact that your brain won't shut up. You stare at the ceiling at 3 a.m, begging for just 1 minute of actual, dead silence. But the thoughts keep colliding. The old childhood traumas keep bleeding into future anxieties. The casual micro-interactions of the day are dissected 1,000 times over until they are completely unrecognizable. You aren't antisocial. You are selectively social because your cognitive tax is already too high. Talking to people forces you to violently slam the brakes on your own internal processing just to track their superficial small talk. It costs a piece of your remaining sanity. You choose isolation not because you hate humanity, but because you are desperate to heal from the friction of simply existing in a loud world. This hyper-vigilant mind doesn't just process information. It archives feelings with terrifying accuracy. When you remember a moment of rejection from 5 years ago, your body feels the exact same chemical burn it felt then. This is the curse of the rich inner world. Your memories are not dusty books on a shelf. They are living, breathing entities that walk through the hallways of your psyche. Solitude becomes the only place where you can negotiate peace treaties with these ghosts. In the quiet, you can look at your past mistakes without the added weight of public judgment. You can analyze why you felt slighted by a coworker's tone, or why a specific comment from a friend triggered a wave of nausea. You are doing the heavy lifting of emotional maintenance that most people avoid by staying busy. They use noise to drown out their demons. You use silence to face them. Let's look closer at the mechanics of this internal labyrinth. Why does it feel so safe? Because inside your mind, you are both the creator and the observer. You can test hypotheses about life without facing actual consequences. You can build elaborate scenarios where you say the right thing, achieve the ideal outcome, and heal the broken relationship. But this safety is a double-edged sword. The more time you spend in the flawless execution of your mental world, the more disappointing the real world becomes. Real people are messy. They interrupt. They don't follow the scripts you write for them in your head. They have their own traumas and projections. This realization can cause you to retreat even deeper into your shell, concluding that reality is a poorly written play compared to the masterpieces running behind your eyes. This is the danger zone, where your sanctuary slowly hardens into an inescapable prison. You have likely noticed how certain sensory inputs feel like a physical assault. A crowded room with competing conversations, flickering fluorescent lights, and the hum of background music can push your neurological ecosystem into a state of low-grade panic. To others, it's just a Friday night at a restaurant. To you, it is a sensory battlefield. Your brain does not possess the standard filter that discards irrelevant stimuli. You are processing the tone of the waiter, the argument at the next table, the reflection of the light on the glass, and your own internal commentary all at once. When you leave these environments, you aren't just tired, you are cognitively shattered. Your desire to go home and sit in a dark room isn't a preference. It is a neurological necessity. It is your brain desperately trying to dump the excess data before it crashes. And yet, despite this exhaustion, there is a sublime power in your configuration. The internal world is where your real life happens. It's where vague intuitions slowly harden into deep, unshakable insights. Many of the world's most significant creative breakthroughs came from people who spent extensive, painful time alone. Synthesis happens internally, in the quiet moments when the brain can work without interruption, but it comes with a heavy price. The deeper you go into your own mind, the wider the gap becomes between you and everyone else. You find these brilliant, profound answers in the dark, but when you look around, there is no one there to share them with. You become a stranger to the very world you live in. You speak a language of deep reflection, while the world speaks in shorthand, emojis, and sound bites. This creates a secondary layer of isolation, a psychological exile, where you are surrounded by people but entirely alone in your understanding of existence. You begin to wonder if something is genuinely wrong with you, if your depth is actually a defect that bars you from true belonging. While others panic when their phone dies or when plans fall through, you feel a secret surge of joy. An unexpected cancellation is a gift of pure, unadulterated time. You do not suffer from the modern chronic illness known as FOMO, the fear of missing out. Instead, you practice JOMO, the joy of missing out. You are perfectly content knowing that life is happening somewhere out there, while you are happening right here. This self-sufficiency is a quiet threat to a consumerist society that relies on your insecurity and boredom to sell you things you don't need. A person who is genuinely content with their own mind cannot be easily manipulated by trends, social pressure, or superficial status symbols. Your internal wealth makes you deeply independent, and that independence is a rare form of freedom. Think about the sheer relief of not needing validation for every single thought that crosses your mind. You can enjoy a beautiful sunset without needing to photograph it, post it, and count the likes to prove it mattered. You can read a sentence in a book that alters your entire worldview and be perfectly content letting that transformation happen in total privacy. This internal processing creates an authenticity that cannot be faked. You don't perform your life, you live it internally. This makes your external actions, when you choose to take them, deliberate and powerful. You don't speak to fill space. You speak because your thoughts have incubated long enough to become words worth hearing. This is why, when you do choose to enter a conversation, people often stop and listen. You bring the weight of the silence with you into the room. So if you are the person who thrives in the dark quiet, listen to me. You are not defective. You succeeded at being self-sufficient. Maybe the goal isn't to force yourself to need people more, just to satisfy a societal checklist. Maybe it's about accepting that your rich inner world is a profound strength, even if it feels like a heavy cross to carry. Constant external noise isn't a sign of a full life. Sometimes it's just a desperate attempt to drown out an empty internal one. The people who love being alone haven't learned to survive emptiness. They've discovered that the silence is actually crowded with meaning. When they ask you, "Aren't you lonely?" or "What do you even do all day?" you aren't hiding a secret sadness. You are living a truth they simply cannot see. Your mind is enough company. Your thoughts are enough anchor. You are the custodian of an invisible ecosystem that keeps you grounded when the rest of the world is spinning out of control. There will still be nights when the coldness creeps in, when the fortress feels a little too quiet, and connection feels desperately important. Moments when the weight of your own mind feels too heavy for one person to bear. You will crave a witness, someone to look at you and understand the unspoken paragraphs behind your brief sentences. That's allowed. That doesn't mean your isolation chamber is broken or that your philosophy has failed. It just means you're human. We are wired for connection, even those of us who have built cities in our heads. But there will also be those long, beautiful stretches where the isolation feels absolute and perfect, where being alone is the only thing saving you from dissolving into the noise of others. You will look around your quiet room, feel the cool air, hear the steady rhythm of your own breathing, and realize you aren't missing a single thing. You are exactly where you are supposed to be, deeply present, completely engaged with a world most people will never even know exists. The world inside your own mind. You aren't afraid of who you are when the music stops and the crowd leaves. You are comfortable with the person you find waiting for you there. Not lonely, complete, not isolated, engaged, not missing out. Deeply, unshakably present with yourself. Walk gently with yourself. Your silence isn't a flaw. It's the only part of you that is truly, permanently yours.